Here's the thing. How many of you guys have an adherence, a knowing, an involvement? I'm skirting around because I don't want to say belief, because I don't like the terminology belief. How many of you have an awareness and an acceptance to the paranormal and the phenomenological stuff that we know happens, but we just can't explain? The stuff that science steers well clear of, right? Like consciousness. But over the years I've spoken a great deal about all this stuff, you know, out-of-body experiences, synchronicity, law of attraction, the paranormal in relation to paradigms which we enter when we take psychedelics, or whether we meditate or have supernatural experiences whilst we're asleep. There's a lot of different arenas that we can enter into the supernatural. And so I'm speaking to my daughter today, and she's currently reading the book The Secret. And she's no stranger to the supernatural because, you know, I've told her all about the shit that I've encountered in my life. And one day I was telling her about one of my latest astral projections, which was, you know, I don't know, a good 7 years ago, something like that. And that very night she started to have the onset of an out-of-body experience. Now, what brought that about? What triggered that? The fact that we was talking about it, and I was imparting to her that it's actually a real thing, you know, they made all these videos about it, and because she had opened up her awareness to it, then that very night she experienced the exact same vibrations that we get when we have an onset of an out-of-body experience. And you hear all different sorts of noises in your head and your body. You've got waves of ooh, 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 trembling and all different sorts of stuff going on. Very bizarre it is. And so today she told me an experience that she had down in London last weekend. Now, she has the fiance now, currently, but when she was living down in London about 7 years ago, she had this boyfriend down there, and he was always in trouble. He was kind of like, had a propensity towards violence, and so he would just get in trouble everywhere he went. And so this caused her anxiety and made her afraid of him. And so going back down to London then, with her fiance, to the place where she lived to see old friends, she was anxious whether she might bump into him. She didn't know what the reception would be, and because he was kind of unpredictable and all this sort of thing. So she had a lot of anxiety about that, and she was thinking about it a lot when she was there. Now, she was there for like 2.5 days, and just about 1 hour before the schedule to go to the tube station to make the way back to King's Cross to come home, who should she see cycling directly down towards her? Her ex-boyfriend. And so it's kind of like, ooh, you know, she turned away and hit herself and said, oh my God, you know, she had something going on. It's kind of like, wow. And so she told me this story, and she said, how does it happen, Dad? Law of attraction. And I'm like, well, there's a lot to be said for that. And I've made lots of videos about it. It really is a thing. Maybe not to such an extent that they speak about in the Secret, in the film and in the book. But it certainly does happen. And as to how and why it happens, well, the only conclusion rationally we can come up with is that if we are thinking about something to such an extent, then it increases the probability of us manifesting that, or of that encounter happening. Now, when we look at these things, it's kind of like, well, look, he lived in Clapham, and evidently still does. And so she went back down, you know, to see old friends and everything. And what's the chances of bumping into him? How many people live in Clapham? You know, 50,000? No idea. But because it was prominent within her psyche, then that raised up exponentially the probability of that occurrence happening. And this is the nature of synchronicity. And it's a very, very curious thing. And of course it's very, very closely linked with the law of attraction. And so people have pondered and tried to work out this phenomenon for many years. And I once read a book by a guy that's into all this phenomenological stuff. He's called Kirby Surprise. And I was watching a video of his only a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. And he was speaking about synchronicity. And how the guy that's interviewing him says, like, you know, what do your kids, you know, think about all this? And he's like, well, you know, my kids are adults now, but you know, of course they're very used to me banging on about it, and to be quite frank, they're completely bored of it, and they don't take it as anything paranormal. It's just an everyday sort of occurrence, because they knew about it a long time ago from their dad. They've accepted it, they've grown with it, they are aware of it, and they can see it and they can bring it about. And it's kind of like, yeah, synchronicity, it's shit that happens. I don't know how it happens, but they accept it. And he was saying, in his day, when he started to have all these synchronicities and write the book, maybe 30 years ago, nobody was speaking about it. You know, Carl Jung coined that term, probably, maybe 1950, 1945 at the earliest, I would think. And, you know, all this sort of stuff, out-of-body experiences, you know, nobody spoke about them. But these days, with the benefit of the internet, everybody knows about everything. And so I was sitting on a bus about, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that, and two young girls got on the bus, only about 16 years old, and one of them started just speaking like, oh, I had an out-of-body experience last night, and the other went, oh yeah, what happened? Oh, this, that, and the other, oh, yeah, really cool. Oh, I've never had one. You know, it's kind of like, what the fuck? That's esoteric stuff. You know, that's the supernatural, that's the occult. And yet, 16-year-old girls, you know. And so these days, everything's out there. And a good number of people just have accepted this stuff as the norm, because they've become used to it, you know. And so that's the thing, we very, very quickly become used to lots of things. And so I was out having a meal with my daughter and her fiance and my nephew, her cousin, best of friends, like brother and sister they are. And, you know, we're having an Indian meal and everything, and I'm starting speaking about some paranormal shit and whatnot. And everyone's like, yeah. You know, it's a supernatural world, we know about all this fucking shit. And it's kind of like, wow. You know, they're like 30-something, early 30s. And so it's curious how the times change. And we can see that all it requires to change the current paradigm is the introduction of something for it to go viral, you know, which is very, very easy to do these days. Just bang something up on YouTube and the whole world knows about it. And so, you know, it's just bizarre. But getting back now then, the last person in the world that she wanted to meet when she went down London to see friends with her fiance was her ex-boyfriend. What's the chances of that happening? But it happened. It wasn't a full-on confrontation. She saw him, but he didn't see her. And it left her thinking. And so she's 3/4 of the way through this secret book, and you know, now she's really enthralled about the whole thing because she knows it's real. And when we've had first experience of this stuff, when we know them things to be real, then of course they become more real and they become apparent to us, and then we can start to work with them. So she's got a vision board, and she writes a journal, and you know, she does the mantras and this, that and the other, and so she's manifesting her reality. And in lots of things, you know, it comes into her life. You know, it's not always, and we can't work out why sometimes things happen and sometimes they don't. Usually what I've found in my life is that if we're too intent on something, then it doesn't work. But if we have an intuition about something, okay, I'll tell a story how this happened to me. On one occasion, I'm in avoidance of seeing my elder brother because we piss each other off, and it's kind of like, oh. So I'd gone round to see him the day before, and then I'd left him kind of like, you know, we're not seeing eye to eye, and he's kind of being dismissive of the things I'm talking about, and I'm like, well, you just don't understand it, that's why. And then he's like, oh, little brother, and all this sort of thing. And so I knew that he was going to this shopping precinct the next day, and so I thought, well, you know, that lazy ass don't get out of bed till 9 o'clock, sometimes later, and I'm always up at the crack of dawn, and it was summertime, and so I thought, well, I'll go early, you know, I'll be in avoidance. The last thing I want to see is, you know, his muppet face, you know, the day after we've just pissed each other off. So I goes there early, and then like I'm on the shopping precinct, and I'm standing on the side of the road just waiting for traffic to come by. Then all of a sudden, who pulls up, winds down the electric window, he says, get in. I'm like, what the fuck? How does that work? The last person I wanted to see, I purposely went out of my way to avoid him. What strange, bizarre thing made him shit the bed in the morning and show up at the shopping precinct about 9 o'clock? You know, which is, he's always in his dressing gown until about 11 o'clock. It's kind of like, what happened? Don't know. But what I do know is, from there on, if I've ever not wanted to see somebody for whatever reason, and you think, like, oh, I'm not going there, so-and-so is going to be there, well, it doesn't matter where you go, because that person's going to be there. If you are overtly in avoidance of a person, well, you're going to bump into them to the ends of the earth, doesn't matter where you go. And there's one story, and I don't know whether it's in the Bible or it's very related to biblical texts and all sort of thing. It's kind of like somebody had a dream, nightmare that Satan was coming to get him, and so he thought, well, he's going to do all the things that he never normally does to throw Satan, so he won't know where to find him. And so anyway, he gets on his horse and he travels like 25 miles, and then he goes somewhere else to see somebody, and then lo and behold, you know, he walks around the corner and he has an encounter with, you know, the embodiment of Satan. And he's stricken, and I don't know whether in this fable he dies or whatever, but basically the moral of the story is, if Satan's got your fucking number, you can run to the ends of the earth. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen. You've got a date with the devil, and you can't be in avoidance of it. And there's a lot of truth to be said for that, people. How many times in my life has that happened? You just don't want to see somebody, you go somewhere completely different, you walk in the door to a bar, restaurant, and it's like, what the fuck? And then it never turns out as bad as you envision it. And of course you're like, oh, how you doing? Alright, yeah. You're not like, hey, you're the fucking last motherfucker I wanted to fucking see. I'm gonna fucking bump into you, fucking motherfucker. No, it's not like that, is it? And then you sit down and you go, well, wasn't that bad? I mean, why was I in such avoidance to see this person? And so when we get wiser and we know this shit works, well, you don't be in avoidance of anybody. And if you have an argument with somebody, work colleague or friend or whatever, and you know them to frequent certain regions, just go there. Go there, go there, go there, go there. Don't be in avoidance, because it doesn't matter where you go, they'll be there if you are in avoidance. Why does that happen? What a bizarre phenomenon. And so, the law of attraction, synchronicity, they're very, very powerful, they're very real, and these days everybody seems to know about them and take them in their stride. You know, when Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity and started to write about it, it's like a super phenomenon. People are like, oh, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, until it happens, and it's kind of like, wow, fuck, you know, that's bizarre shit. And it's, well, look, a scenario, one scenario Jung talks about is that he was reading a book, and it was speaking about a certain fish. There's a certain fish that was mentioned in this book. And then, the next day, he wakes up on his, he's got a house on the lake, and did his early morning meditation, walk, and this, that, and the other, and lying dead on the surface is one of these particular fish. He's like, wow, I was only just reading about that fish. And, you know, not being a fisherman, an angler, he's never encountered one of these fishes in that lake before. Didn't even know they were there. And then he goes into town, and then he bumps into somebody, and then somebody says that, oh, I'm just going to go to the pescardo, you know, the fishmongers, and to buy this particular fish, maybe like a tilapia, freshwater fish or something. And so Jung's like, hang on, I was reading about tilapia, I saw tilapia dead on the lake, and then I see my friend, and then like he's rushing to the fishmongers to buy one of these fish. Synchronicity. And there's so many scenarios of that, and you just go, well, you know, people say, oh, it's just coincidence, but synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence because it actually means something. There's something that feels related even though it's not. And I think a lot of this is to do with our awareness of these coincidences. You know, we can be speaking about someone, can't we? You can meet a friend and you can talk about an old friend, and then whilst you're talking about that old friend, you haven't seen them in 10 years, your phone or their phone rings and it's the old friend. And you just go, did I order that from the universe? Yeah, some shit went down like that. Or there's another story when you know, Jung, he went into another city, and he'd had already 2 occasions. He had a dream about an old friend, and then the day after he received a letter from the old friend, and then 2 days after that he visited another city where the friendship didn't relate to. He walked around the corner and he bumped into the old friend. And he said, oh, I wrote to you, you know, a couple of days ago. Yeah, I was going to write back to you, and, you know, and all that. So all this stuff happens, this paranormal stuff. And so I include a lot of this in my book. And more and more people have started to tune into it now, which obviously makes it more interesting, because there's nothing more boring than people are, oh, I don't believe this and I don't believe that. Oh, you believe in the Bible and Jesus shit? Oh yeah, that's true. You know, it's like, oh, fuck off. You know. And so it's just a bit more refreshing when, you know, lots of people sitting on a bus, on a train, in a restaurant, start talking about synchronicity or law of attraction or, you know, paranormal out-of-body experiences and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, just that. So I suppose I'll finish this video with asking you the question, have you had any of these experiences? Have you had a first-hand experience of the law of attraction? Did you purposely set out to create your reality? Like I did on one memorable occasion when this coin came to me. Very, very bizarre, very bizarre. I've never had one of those coins come to me since, and I never saw one for about 20 years prior. But I just thought, oh, one of those old coins. Yeah, I'm gonna find one of those old coins is gonna come to me. 2 weeks later, the motherfucker was placed in my hand with the date of mint of my date of birth. You can't make this shit up, people. But what it is when we get into the supernatural vibration, this whole thing is supernatural. And more scientists are starting very reluctantly to accept it. And so I talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson quite a bit these days, because he's one of these classic scientists, physicists, that, you know, it's always about, oh, if you can't make an equation, if you can't predict it with this, if you can't, then it doesn't exist. It's like, well, you don't even know what fucking consciousness is. You can't work out what consciousness is with that. And yet, you know, you accept that that exists. And so anyway, now, he's starting to do all different sorts of videos on the paranormal, supernatural, and psychedelics, and everything like this. And so, he's never took any psychedelics, and people have gone, why don't you take no psychedelics? You fucking know then. It's kind of like, ooh, he's too scared. Because, oh, I don't want anything to damage this beautiful, you know, finely tuned machine. And it's kind of like, well, nobody's ever fucking reported any stories of like, awesome, just because I've had a few mushrooms, mate. You know, so you're scared, that's what it is. But I think ultimately we'll end up taking some, because he's putting his feelers out all over the place. And, you know, the people he's mixing with have done them. And it's kind of like, fuck, you know, it's far out, man, it's cool, you know, it's cray. And so, yeah. Jordan Peterson, he's took 3 7-gram doses of magic mushrooms. I suppose they're the Canadian or American ones, cubensis, but they're high doses. And so, you know, he went to places, and when you've been to these places, it changes the whole configuration of your mind and how you see the world. And so when he's speaking, touching on sort of things he pulled back from that, people like, for instance, he had a conversation with Richard Dawkins, and he told Richard Dawkins that he took these 7 grams on several occasions, and, you know, he went down into the molecular level of the cosmos, and he considers that he saw the molecular structure of the universe. And Richard Dawkins is saying, are you telling me that you expected me to believe that you saw the atomic molecular structure of the cosmos? And Peterson went, that's what I'm telling you. You know, it may sound very bizarre, but these things are bizarre. They take you into very, very bizarre states of consciousness and different, you know, phenomenal paradigms and everything. And there's dead dogma fucking Dawkins, you know, who hasn't got an ounce of passion and, or spirit in his old body. You know, how many people are crying out for that motherfucker to take a handful of shrooms? Completely change his fucking world. But they won't, you see, because they've invested all their life into this sterile fucking bullshit of math and I don't believe and it's got to be calculated, otherwise it doesn't exist. There's a fucking billion things in this dimension that can't be calculated that exist. And so, just have a bit of a bluster and a bit of a rant on that motherfucker. But thinking, projecting, calling down from the universe. Once, and you see my daughter, I've been telling her all this different stuff, how to, you know, get on top of her life. And although she can take it on board intellectually, she doesn't have the deepest of confidence, you know, in it, because it never became a part of her reality. But now this law of attraction and synchronicity is really bringing shit home to her. She's absolutely, and she almost had an out-of-body experience the day after I was talking about it. She woke up with these vibrations and she shit herself, and you know, she wouldn't lie on her back again for the next 6 months while she's trying to sleep, or was lying on her stomach, because very rarely do you get an O.B.E. when you're lying on your stomach. But now, shifting into these different paranormal realms, it's becoming quite normal. And then when it becomes normal, we realise that we are God, motherfuckers. We are God. Consciousness is God. Consciousness creates everything. There is no physical matter here at all. It's all illusion. And we create it. And when we get versed into all this supernatural stuff, with scientists and everything who are tentatively sticking their toes in to this stuff, then we can see that it's a very, very bizarre world indeed. Cosmos universe. And it's magical, it's incredible, it's just a joy to experience and play with. We're here to play. Can you imagine the state of people's minds? I don't believe, I just believe in Jesus. I don't believe in anything else. I was frequenting a pastor on one occasion, and I was presenting all different sorts of stories and experiences that I'd had, and I was questioning him, and he couldn't come up with a single fucking answer. And I was saying, well, you should read this book, or this book's really interesting, and he put his hand on his Bible. He said, these are the only books I need. These 66 books. And I'm like, wow, you dead fuckface. You are dead indoctrinated. Dead desert dogma. Dickhead. But that was his life, you see. He was a pastor. He'd invested 30 years of his life into that shit. And so most of it, people, is that people are terrified of discovering something that they just cannot discount, and it will shatter their paradigm, and it will fuck them up because they're just not ready for it, because they couldn't handle the truth, you know? The truth is, we're God. Consciousness is God, and this is a metaphysical, non-physical world, and is being dreamt somehow by us individually, collectively, you know, projected like a hologram, created like a simulation. Even, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says, I'm still waiting after 15 years for somebody to convince me that this isn't a simulation. That's a fucking theoretical physicist, ladies and gentlemen. You know, someone that, you know, holds or hosts these scientific gatherings, has done for 15 years. And he doesn't believe in free will, and, you know, he's going, this is a fucking simulation. So, anyway, I'll wrap this video up here, and I'll catch you later.